Vaya con Dios, amigo.
What's that mean?
Go with God.
You're listening to the Rock God Podcast. To another episode of the Rock God Podcast. I'm your host, David Locklear, the head writer and owner of heavy-vinyl.com. Today we're going to be talking to Daniel from the Asheville-based black metal band Black Mountain Hunger. Now, Black Mountain Hunger formed in 2013, and over the course of a few years had a few lineup changes before they finally settled on the current four-piece that they are now. They take their influences from many of the traditional black metal bands, such as the legendary 1349 from Norway, who they had the privilege of opening up for in Asheville at the Mothlight Club back at the end of October. Now, I foolishly did not pick up a ticket before the day of the show, and then when I was heading down to interview Daniel, I came to find out that the show was completely sold out. So I wasn't even sure if I was going to see the band that I was interviewing perform at this show. And so when I talked to him about this, he was even surprised at how much demand there was for this show in Asheville, and what demand came from outside places such as friends and family who were hoping to get a ticket, and he was suddenly having to tell them no, he couldn't even get them in. So it was fun to sit down and talk to him just a few stores down at a place called The Gas Pump in Asheville. Nice rainy day. And we had a good conversation about their influences and about their theological beliefs and how they deviate from traditional black metal and make that sound their own. Was it just like a last minute, all of a sudden people were just jumping in and trying to grab tickets?
I truly don't know. Like, I have no concept of what's been going on, because like, this is not, it's not a last minute thing that we were promoting it. Like, everything was just very well put forward ahead of time, and just people slept on it. And now it's...
And now it's like a feeding frenzy about it, isn't it?
I've never had a show in town respond like this, or at least not one that I'm playing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's weird.
Well, I came down here, it might have been about a year or so ago when the Yob came through.
Yeah.
I'd gotten things set up, months in advance and whatnot, and, I come walking up, and the line's wrapped around the block, and people are just... selling tickets, like you said, they're selling them for like $80.
It's insane. Like, I did not expect that.
I mean, that's awesome, though. It's got to feel a little like Madison Square Garden in a way.
In a weird way, yeah. It's very, because we haven't played a show in nearly 2 years. Like,
oh, I didn't know that. Really?
Yeah, we took some time off because our former vocalist had a baby, so she decided to go her own way and do that, which fair enough.
Right.
So I took over after that, and we decided to just like focus on writing and recording a new album.
Yeah.
And haven't played any shows in the meantime. So like to go from nothing for a couple years to this is our first show back.
Oh man. So there's like even I guess a little bit of nerves are probably happening.
There's some added pressure. Like
shit.
It's just like okay.
Here's what it is.
Yeah.
You know?
So we'll see how it goes. Like, I mean, we're ready for it. We've been practicing specifically for this, and like, but yeah, just none of us saw it coming.
Well, I mean, that's always a good, success is always a good surprise.
Yeah, I'll take it. It's strange, but I'll take it.
Right. Yeah.
Just kind of overwhelmed.
Right.
Like, I'm not sure how to respond to any of it. Just like we're gonna turn up and do our best.
Pray for rain,
Yeah.
Well, it's already raining, so I guess that's a good sign.
Yeah, we're in good shape. Like, it's just strange. So, did you manage to get any tickets, or have you finagled
I
away
actually I went and talked to somebody at the door, and I told him that I was going to try to take some pictures of you guys, which was the plan. And he said I could come in with you guys, and that would be fine. So, if you're okay with that, I mean,
I am, so long as they are, because basically they told us we each get a person, and all of us, like, our other guitar player is bringing his dad, and the rest of us, our wives are coming. So long as they're cool with that, yeah.
Okay,
totally.
And if it is a problem, I 100% will bail, because it's my stupid ass fault that I didn't buy a ticket to begin with, and I never do that. I don't know why I didn't do it this time. It's one of those things where
it just seems to be the theme for today.
I think it's that I got comfortable.
Yeah.
I've done this a few times. I've come up to the Mothlight a few times, and I'm like, nah, it'll be fine.
Yeah, this is a very out of the ordinary situation. So, yeah, so long as they're fine with it, I have no objection.
Okay. All right. Well, I want you to know if I will not be a problem. If they're like, no, I'll be like, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for the interview.
Well,
There's other shit I can do.
Yeah, I hope that you can. And if you already spoke to them, I don't think it should be a problem. But yeah, it's just like everything that. Because usually we have a little guest list, things like that when we play, and it's like, you guys get one each. It's
right.
Like, all right.
Man,
fair enough.
Yeah, and,
like,
and I felt like such a douche even asking you that, I'm just like, okay, look.
You are one in a sea right now. Like, just everybody, like everyone I work with was like,
can you give me a ticket, man?
Yeah, didn't expect that to happen, sorry. Can I get one? It's like, we have nothing. Like, literally nothing I can do.
Yeah.
Like, unless we all were like, yeah, don't come, our wives, like, and I don't think that would go over good.
No.
So,
No.
So,
I
yeah,
know
we're
that's
just all like, our hands are tied. But,
yeah, I know. It's almost at the point where you're like, I'm lucky I got a ticket at this point, and I'm even playing the damn thing,
it's wild. It's such a weird scenario.
Well, tell me how you guys came together.
So our drummer and our other guitar player have been playing in Black Mountain Hunger for like 7 years now, I think. Like it's been a thing for a long time, and it used to kind of have almost a revolving door of like other members. Like there have been a lot of people in this band that like have just, they lived their life in it, and it came to a close and moved on. And so eventually our bass player, his name's Jesse, he plays in the band Basque as well. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Yeah.
So they needed a bass player. They asked him. He started playing with them. And then it turned out they needed another guitar player. And Jesse knew me from a former band that I was in. Our other bands played together quite a bit. And he was like, we should try him out, see how it goes. And it just kind of worked.
Yeah.
And so in the format we are in now, aside from Balin having left, we've been pretty much the same for about 3 or 4 years now.
Yeah. And
Except-
Balin's the former vocalist that had the baby. Okay.
Yeah, and when she left to go be a mom, I took over on vocals as well, because I was doing backing stuff anyway. So it was like, we talked about potentially trying to find somebody new, and it seemed like it made more sense to keep the chemistry and the dynamic as it was, and like keep it everybody who knows what we're doing and likes how we're doing it, than try to find somebody else and make that chemistry work, and then potentially an unwanted evolution of the band. So we just decided we'll stick as a 4-piece and call it that. And that's what we've been doing. So
Did removing a member kind of put some added pressure on the rest of you guys to make the same sound?
not so much, because I have done vocals for bands in the past. Like, the biggest thing was getting used to playing guitar while doing it, and like having to learn like what level I can write things at where I can still perform both jobs well, instead of like trying to overwrite guitar parts or overwrite vocal parts and make them super complicated and then not be able to do one or the other. So aside from that, it's really not been much in the way of pressure. It's just kind of opened some different avenues of things that we've wanted to explore as a band. So like things that musically we may not have done before, we're a little more open to now, and so that's really it. It's been more growth than anything, I think. But I wouldn't call it pressure, at least not in the negative content.
But I mean, it's good that it's, pushing you into, stronger musical heights.
Yeah.
Because I always feel like, as a casual fan, a lot of people don't notice that.
Yeah.
But as the band, you probably are the ones going, we've really pushed forward, and you probably don't feel like you get maybe the proper accolades for that on some level sometimes.
Maybe not. It's also kind of like, it's never been a thought in the forefront for us. Like, we write things that we want to play because we like them.
Right.
We are really flattered and honored when other people like it, but we don't specifically write to show it off or for other people. Like, we write because it's what we want to do and we really enjoy what we're making.
Yeah.
And if people kind of come along for that ride with us, that's great.
Yeah.
And then when people do really appreciate it or really like it or sell out a show that we've are playing, it's a huge compliment to us, and we're super grateful and appreciate everybody that is making that kind of thing happen. But it's never like a forefront to like write for people outside of ourselves.
Right.
And I think that's part of what makes us what we are, is because we're not trying to sell albums or like sell merch. We're playing what we like and making the best version of what we like and taking our time with it. Whereas other bands that I've been in would write as much as I could just so it's like, cool, now we have an album, we can go tour.
Yeah.
And like, it's much more of a sales pitch, I feel, for a lot of like my own former projects even, but we're just not trying to do that. Like, we just want to do what we like and are stoked that people like it too.
Well, it sounds like most artists where you're looking for something in particular, and then you're just like, well, screw it, I'll make what I want.
Yep.
That's what I did when I was a kid. I'd be writing books, and I'm like, I can't find what I'm looking for. It's because I need to write what's in my head, because no one else is going to do that for me.
And very much the same thing. And like, we're happy to play in our drummer's basement and just write stuff and make things that we're all really fascinated with, which sounds extremely self-serving, but it's not meant to be that. It's just something that we all really enjoy doing as a group, and it's just worked out.
Yeah. So. Now, you guys released a new song, was it last week or this week?
It was this week.
Okay, and it's called Neither Lion Nor Lamb.
Correct.
And I was reading the lyrics, and it sounds less lyrically, it sounds less like a typical black metal song, and almost more like a climate change call to arms.
In a way it is. So most of the album, we haven't named it yet, but the album that we've been working on is not so much typical black metal lyrical content or anything. The concept is basically the earth becomes sentient, realizes that people are what are doing the damage to it, and so the earth either has to let people continue to kill it and then themselves, or act against them and kind of overthrow people, and then just let it be the planet with animals and reset, basically.
Right.
So that's more or less what most of the album is about, like from different perspectives of either the earth or like people in different groups, like responding to what's going on. It's not like the typical black metal lyrics that people would expect, or the themes, because we honestly don't really associate with most of that. And we're not really trying to be dishonest about it. Just again, making things that speak to us and are relevant to us that we're aware of.
Right. Now, see, black metal is something that I haven't really done a deep dive into until sometime this year.
Yeah.
I started really getting into it, and the thing that I was sort of struck by was how it originated with, you know, so many of the, like, this, like, anti-religion vibe, and, you know, a call back to, you know, your roots, Viking roots, things like that. But it seems like over the years that a lot of black metal has kept the sound and aesthetic of that, but they lyrically, a lot of them have really branched out into things that don't even have anything to do with, you know, religion or claiming your heritage and whatnot. It sounds like that's what you're doing.
More or less, and like, it's kind of like anything. You do the same thing too much, it gets old. And I love old black metal. Like, I've listened to it most of my life, but like, you hear the same lyrics, and especially when there are already great bands doing that, like Behemoth. Yeah. Behemoth is already doing that. Why do I need to try to be Behemoth? When they're speaking about things that are more relevant to them as individuals, I think that it would be dishonest of us to just lump onto a subject matter because it's black metal or whatever, because it is satanic or what. We don't really care. We're not here for that. We're not into the shock factor of stuff, I guess, or at least not in the same way.
Right.
And we just don't see a need for that from us, anyway. Like, I think that in black metal, obviously, that's like part of what made it what it is, was people responding to problems in their immediate life, but just doing it through a lens of more, I don't know, mythical kind of things, and like a lot of medieval stuff and just imagery that makes it sound more epic than it is.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good thing, and it should continue to happen. I just don't think we're the people to continue that because it's not as real of an issue to us. Like,
right.
And so I feel like the people that it is, where there's persecution from any religion or any governmental stuff or any of that, be honest about what you want, or go in the complete opposite direction and write about dragons and shit. Who cares? Like, just do what resonates with you instead of trying to emulate what everybody else is doing.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, with that in mind, what are your theological beliefs, or do you have any?
I don't really. I essentially believe that we're all here to try to be the best thing that we can and take care of each other. I think there are a lot of good things from religion, and I think there's a lot of terrible things from religion. And essentially, if you stick to the main kind of subject matter, just be good to each other and don't ruin where you live, then you're probably going to be okay. Like, it's a Metalocalypse reference, even, that I think sums it up really well, is don't be a dick, be a dude.
Right.
Like, and that's about as much as I really invest in it, because I feel like that's really all that it needs to be. Like, I don't want to be a good person for fear of punishment later, or for fear, or for hope of reward. Like, if you're doing that, then I don't think that you're doing it genuinely. And so that's kind of always been my approach towards it, is just be a good person because you want to, or don't because you don't want to. And try not to hurt other people.
Yeah.
And beyond that, that's about it.
Yeah.
So.
I know it's like, I think a lot of people do approach beliefs, and not even just in religion, but in so many different facets, even politics and whatnot. It's a fear of punishment, or a desire or ambition, even, you know, for some sort of a reward.
Right.
And that's always frustrated me, I guess. And because I come from a background where that was part of my belief system for a long time. Yeah. But I think that that a lot of people, they just kind of have it wrong, and it's upsetting that part of the world is seen through this sort of punishment or reward lens.
Yeah, the fire and brimstone, and I think when a lot of the main religions now came to be, there was a lot more logic to it. It was like basically things to try to keep yourself healthy. Like, if you really critically look at it, like in the Bible, not eating shellfish or like eating things that were kosher to keep everything separated and likely to not get ill from food that wasn't cooked properly. And now I don't think a lot of that's really relevant. We've kind of come a long way since. And like just a lot of the rules and regulations that don't feel are really something that we need to latch onto anymore. I think when all of that was coming to be and was enforced in the way that it was a lot more relevant, but I don't know. It just doesn't seem like anything that... There are good things to take from it, obviously, like treat people well, do unto others, all that stuff, but I don't think we need to do that because we're scared we're going to go burn forever.
Yeah.
And I think if you are only being good to people because you're scared that some floating being in the sky is going to send you to a pit of fire forever...
Maybe your view's a little off.
Yeah, like, why are you trying to impress that thing then? Like, if you think that it made you and then it's going to torture you for doing something bad, I don't know. That doesn't seem like something that I'm really willing to latch onto. Yeah, and I'm using Christianity as a reference for a lot of this just because we're in the U.S. That's especially the southern U.S. And most religions have things like that, where like if you do good, then you'll be rewarded forever. If you do bad, then you get tortured or you vanish. I feel like there's no way that you can follow those with that in mind and be sincere about it. It's just self-preservation at that point, and nothing more than that. And so, yeah, that's about as far as my thoughts on it go.
Right, yeah. Well, I mean, have you ever were you raised in like a religious environment?
I was, yeah. So I come from a Christian background and have always thought that stuff didn't quite seem right with it. I feel like a lot of the Old Testament teachings were very violent and hateful, and then like when Jesus came around, it was completely the opposite, and it's like he seemed to have it right. It was just be good to people, take care of each other, like help sick people, help people who are in need, like help people who are running away from tyrannical governments. Like, awesome. All of these things are great.
Yeah.
But I feel like so many people get hung up in kind of the Old Testament teachings and like that you can't do this because not the just be good to people elements. Like, and I feel like if a lot of Christians, like my parents are very loving and accepting people, like so they do identify as Christian, but not in the way that I feel a lot of people in the South especially do, where it's so stuck on just rules and legalism and following exactly what a very old book says to the letter. They're more following the direct teachings of Christ, and I think that if people do that, that's cool.
Yeah.
But again, it's just not something that has stuck with me for long. Like, as soon as I got old enough to where I could kind of critically break it down and like think about it, I kind of started straying away from it at that point. And
How old do you think you were?
12 or 13, fairly
Oh, wow.
young. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess that makes sense because that is around the time everything starts going haywire, and the questions are a big part of that.
Yeah, and the more questions I had that couldn't get answered, or at least not in a way that I found satisfactory, the more it spiraled, and the more I just kind of developed my own path and my own way of looking at the world.
Yeah.
And I don't know why more people don't do that.
Right. For me, it was like around that time I actually started. I was the same way. A lot of the questions I had, there was not a satisfactory answer, and it was always some kind of like fortune cookie fundamentalist bullshit that just. It's like it's real easy surface stuff, but it doesn't address the entire ocean underneath.
Right, and I feel like a lot of it gets stuck in that, where it's like everything happens for a reason. When people use that as a response to any question, it's like you're just scared of what the actual answer might be. Like,
And it doesn't help. You know?
like, because you try telling that to somebody whose child just died or something like that. They don't want to hear it, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
Like, and I, in my own weird way, find it more comforting to think that things don't happen for any reason in, like, that kind of situation where it's like, nobody knows what we're here for.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know why that happened, but saying that it was some smarter being's ultimate plan, I feel like is almost really insulting.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I've always just not quite been able to, like, come to terms with. It's like, that doesn't make sense, especially if it's supposed to be, like, a loving, like, creator. Why is it going to let something that it created suffer like that?
And I mean, that's still one of the ones I actually struggle with, you know, because because I believe, and I've come to the point where I know the reasons I believe and whatnot.
Yeah.
But that's one of the big ones where I'm just like, I do not have an answer for that, and I'm looking for it.
Yeah.
I hope to find it one day. But yeah, the last thing in the world I would say at this point is, well, it's God's will or something like that, because I've been on both sides of that, and I've been the one trying to say it to make you feel better.
Yeah.
And I've also been on the other side, and I realize that's an asshole thing to say.
Yeah. So do you identify more in the Christian realm? Or
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was curious, like, because we as a band don't get a lot of requests for interviews to start with, but especially when it's like, I wonder what basis you're coming at it from as well. Just
Well, I've always been fascinated by it, because even when I was a little kid, I would be listening to, Metallica's and Justice for All, and I would constantly get the whole, well, that's the devil's music, you're going to hell, and I'm like, how is that even possible? It was always very, why?
Yeah.
But this makes me feel better.
Yeah.
Because a lot of metalheads I know, they're like, the music makes me feel better,
Right.
and it seems like a lot of metalheads come from a kind of a messed up background on some level. Something's happened in their past,
Like,
and that fury kind of makes things, a little more palatable.
It's a release in some form. Like, it's something chaotic that you can be a part of without actually having to be chaotic. Like,
Right.
or like go hunt or fight wars or things like that, where it's like, humans used to have these things that we had to do that were all kind of outlets for aggression, and now like with where society is, a lot of that's very limited, and I feel like metal for a lot of people is that. Like, it gives you the outlet to just go scream at nothing, and it's okay. Like, you can just be furious for no reason, or you can not be upset at all but still be screaming and like get out other things. And so
I like the fact that most metalheads will accept the fact that when you're crashing into each other, you're not really trying to kill each other.
You're not.
Like, we all get it.
Yeah, generally they're not there to fight one another. It's there as a just expressive, like, this is the one time that I get to do this. Like, this is where I'm actually free to be expressive and not necessarily be violent, but be more animated than most people get to be. Like,
the whole, proverbial letting off steam.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think it can be and is therapeutic for a lot of people, and I think that's great. Like, everybody should have some form of outlet.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, it's jumping around with a bunch of other people who are just as angry at the world as they are for no real reason or for reasons they don't know, and they're just trying to let that out so that they don't let it out in times that could be really harmful to themselves or other people.
Yeah, I can imagine a lot of people who listen to metal they'd be doing some bad shit if they didn't have this as an outlet.
I think that you're probably correct there.
Because I remember when I was growing up, my mother was she was terrified of all the bands I was listening to, and of course it was like, I hope you don't become a Satanist. And I'm like, I promise I won't, it's all good. But it was one of those things that I think she realized later on, it was really beneficial for me, because I think a temper can flare up in the best of people and for the wrongest reasons, and you don't even know why.
Yeah, and everybody has something that's going to push them. Like, the quietest, calmest person that you know has something that if you bring it up or do it or like push them enough, they'll snap. Like, that's how people work.
Yeah.
But I think the fact that it can be such an outlet for so many people is a great thing, and I think that's part of why it has continued to be for so long. Like, that and the fact that metal evolves. Like, it's one of very few styles of music that keeps growing and it's still okay. Like, there are a million different segments of metal, and like, end of the day, everybody's there for the same reasons. And I think that's awesome. And I think that part of the reason it is evolving so much and it's forced to grow so much is because it's really welcoming to people for that. Like, it doesn't say you're not allowed to be like this. You're not allowed to be upset at stuff. You're like, it encourages you to kind of work through that. That way in your normal life you can be functional at least. So
yeah, I always one of my best examples is I pointed out to a friend of mine who talked about how, you know, metal's such a closed club, and I'm like, well, metal was far more accepting of Rob Halford being gay before really any other genre of music was okay with it. And that seemed on the surface completely contradictory. But it goes back to what you say. It's like, man, if you're a misfit, you're in the club.
It's kind of like an evolution of like what punk rock started as, like where it's the people that, you know, society might look at and see as like, oh, that guy's probably a problem. Like, he's probably going to wind up in jail, and it takes care of people like that. It's fine. Like, you're allowed to feel the way that you do. Come hang out. Like, be a part of this. Let some of that out, and like, just enjoy it. Enjoy yourself for a little while. And I think that that's a really cool thing, and that as it continues to evolve and grow, I think it's going to continue doing that. And I think there's kind of a big surge in metal happening right now because of that. Like, a lot of bands that are blowing up now that would not have like 10 years ago.
I've noticed that too. There was like this weird surge in like the early 2000s where a bunch of bands shut, and then it kind of died back down, but it does feel like it's on the upswing again.
And I think that's a really cool thing to see. Like, and it's becoming more and more acceptable, I think, especially like social media and things like that have all kind of really opened that window, and like now people that wouldn't typically be exposed to it or wouldn't think that it's something that they'd be into can kind of like get a glimpse of it through a window, see if it's something that connects with them, and then if it is, latch onto it more. And I think a lot of that has been happening, and like that is really cool to see. A lot of people that would still probably be outsiders in their own right are being brought in, and it's like, cool, it doesn't matter what your background is, what you believe, like anything, it doesn't matter, just come be a part of this. And I think that's a really, really amazing thing to see in such a thing that's perceived as so aggressive and hateful. And it's one of the most welcoming communities that I know of. So.
I agree, because it's just so many people, you know, just find in an odd way sanctuary, you know, to use a religious term, you know, it's like it is a place of you know, peace. It doesn't look like it, but it really is.
And it just encourages everybody to be themselves. Like, do what you want to do, have fun, come out, like, just
don't be a dick. You know, that always seems to be the one rule.
And if you are, apologize.
Like, exactly. If I accidentally hit you in the pit, oh, sorry, dude. I'll get you a beer and we'll move on with our day.
And like, so often that just seems to be how it functions, and it's such a strange thing because so many people think that it's so angry and volatile, and that everybody involved is evil and terrible. And it's
like, look at the end of the show, and you'll see everybody walking out going, man, let's go get some waffles.
And like hugging each other and high-fiving, like just talking to their friends or making new friends. Like, and there are not a whole lot of things that I've seen in my life that respond that way. Like, and are that open about responding that way. Like, even other like genres of music I've seen seem to be way more of like the cool kids club, and like you're only allowed here if you like this obscure band from 30 years ago that like influenced this and that, like and it doesn't really seem to matter in metal. Like, there are so many versions of it, and everybody's just like, yeah, all right, that counts.
Like,
and then like there'll be little bickering between like elitists or whatever,
Yeah.
which is always funny.
Yeah,
but-
well, it's always fun to piss them off too, you know.
Yeah, because it's like you were just being a thorn in the side of everything here, and like nobody else really cares. It's just funny.
Yeah.
Like, and I always do enjoy that a little bit. But
Like one of my temptations sometimes is like going into a show tonight and be like, man, I can't wait to hear this Doom band. And just to see like 4 or 5 guys. You're stupid.
yeah,
I know,
just
it's
to
funny.
see who glares at you.
Yeah.
yeah. It's,
I probably won't, but you know, there's a temptation always. You know?
for sure. And like even us, like we don't look very typical of like what a black metal band would look like. We don't do corpse paint. We don't dress up. We just go play in what we probably were already wearing that day.
Right.
And that's fine. Like, and people seem to be totally cool with that. Whereas,
Yeah.
like, I know if, like, in the earlier 2000s, if we were a black metal band and did that, people would have been mad.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like you can't play that and not look that way. And now it's like I look like I probably work at an auto parts store, and nobody cares. It's
Yeah.
just like the music that you make is neat, so that's what is important. And
Yeah.
so just seeing the evolution is really a cool thing. So,
It's really cool. I like the fact that there's a black metal band in Asheville, you know, because
Yeah.
that seems appropriate.
Yeah.
You know, because
And there-
Asheville's such an anomaly in the South anyway, you
for
know.
sure. There are actually a few. There's a decent little black metal scene here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What are some other bands?
Of course, now that I need to think of them, I can't. Like Shadow of the Destroyer
Okay.
is a really good one. Jeez. Now I'm just having a total brain fart.
That's all right. I know exactly how you feel.
Yeah, but there is a cool little pocket of black metal that's happening here and has been for the last few years at least. So like, we're not the only ones. We just have somehow managed to be in the good graces of people for a little longer, I guess. Which, thanks everybody.
Yeah.
Like, again, super grateful to it. Don't understand it, but
Go for the ride.
yeah, stoked to be here.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the show, man. And
Yeah.
you know, 1349. I mean, they're pretty legendary. So
Yes. Yeah,
I'm surprised they came so close.
Same, and Ueda, I'm really excited
Yeah.
about seeing them live. Everything that I've seen, like footage-wise, they're incredible. And Cloak is rad. I don't know if you listen to them at all.
No,
They're
I didn't get a chance to, but yeah,
really,
yeah.
really good. So I think everybody that is playing tonight is a very separate, but it works together
Yeah.
kind of bill. Like, everybody's their own version of what we're doing. And I think that for people who are fans of black metal especially, it'll be a neat kind of like glimpse at a whole world of it, rather than just like it's all first wave bands or it's all second wave or it's all like more of the newer stuff like Death Heaven where it's almost post rock or like things
Yeah.
like that. Like it's a little bit of everything. And
Yeah, now that you mention it, that's a good way of putting it. It is almost like just like a sampler platter in a way.
yeah, and I think a lot of people aren't aware that there's even this many forms of black metal, and there's a lot more than this. Like, this is just what happens to be here today, and everybody's really, really good. Like,
Yeah.
and doing their very different version of what's happening tonight. So I think it's going to be a really interesting and eclectic
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm very much looking forward to it and really interested to see how it all goes.
Oh yeah, me too, man. Well, listen, I appreciate you,
Yeah,
taking
absolutely.
some time out of your insanely hectic schedule today to chat with me.
Yeah, usually it's not this nuts. Usually we have a little bit more downtime.
That's all right. Well, I'll let you go so you can get back to it.
Well, I very much appreciate it.
All right.
and, yeah,
We're talking to
thanks for-
Daniel from Black Mountain Hunger. I almost forgot your name for a second. That's really
Sorry.
bad. All
It's
right.
a long name. It's fine.
So that's going to do it for this episode of the Rock God Podcast. I want to thank Daniel and all the guys from Black Mountain Hunger for taking a few minutes to talk to me on such a busy and hectic day, getting ready to open for such a legendary band as 1349. So if you want to check out some more of their music, go to their Bandcamp page. It is blackmountainhunger.bandcamp.com. Also, if you want to go and check out their Facebook page, it is at Black Mountain Hunger. I'm your host, David Locklear. Make sure you go to heavy-vinyl.com to go check out all the vinyl and cassettes that we have available as well. And go to our other social media pages, Facebook at Heavy Vinyl and Cassettes, Instagram, Heavy Vinyl Records, and Twitter is at Vinyl Heavy. And I hope you tune in next time for another episode of the Rock God Podcast. Until then, God bless.